we're going to continue to look at method of production. So yesterday we looked at one of the methods, right? What was the method that we looked at yesterday? The first method, or the first part of the process. What was the first part of the process?
Planting.
All right, so the first part of the process is planting. So that is the very first thing. What you do when you're planting? How would we go about the planting? I'm going to ask students, Robinson, tell me the first thing that we're going to do.
Sorry, clear the land.
Clear the land. Morrison, after we clear the land, what else we're going to do? Morrison?
Sir, you plow it?
Explain what you mean by plow it.
Like dig it up, sir? Like prepare the land?
No. That's not what we do. James, what is it? After we clear the land, what's the next thing?
Dig a hole.
You dig a hole, but you have to do something before you dig a hole. What is that? Norman, before you dig a hole, you just go and plant just like that?
Sorry, burn the excess grass that's there.
Thank you very much. So the first thing, the first you clear the land, then you have to burn the grass, the excess grass that is there. And then after that, Brown, what we do after that?
Sorry, dig the hole.
You dig the hole. Tell me a little bit more about how you go about digging the hole.
Sir, a typical estate is 150 to 300 acres, and for every acre, 2,700 holes were digged in the ground.
All right, thank you very much. And Hemmings, after you dig the hole, what you're going to do after that?
You plant the cane?
Plant the cane. You just plant any cane. What you're going to do?
There are two types of cane on the raccoon cane and the new cane. The raccoon cane were the ones that were replanted, canes that were already grown and replanted, and the new cane was I don't know exactly. But the raccoon cane, it took 12 months to mature and it had a lower sucrose level, and the new cane took 15 months to mature and had a higher sucrose level.
All right, thank you very much. Lorraine, what we mean by sucrose level? I mean, talk about sucrose level. What we mean by sucrose level?
We're talking about the sugar content in which the cane contains.
Very good, very good. And then after that, no, we just leave the cane to grow just like that every day. What we're going to do, Williams, what we're going to do after that? What the enslaved people going to do after that? Jayla Williams?
Yes, sir.
What the enslaved people going to do after that? After we plant the cane, what we're going to do?
Harvest. Sir, harvest.
Okay. What they're going to do?
Harvest.
You're not harvest yet. You can't harvest the cane. You just put the cane in the ground and you're going to harvest the cane already.
They have to water it and take care of it.
Yes, they're going to take care of the cane field, but Laylor, tell me a little bit more about that process of taking care of the everyday process. Christina. Christina? Brown, help us out, please.
So the older folks and the children would use the soil to make sure that the cane is firm in the ground, and also it adds nutrients to the cane so that the cane can grow.
Very good. Thank you very much. And so the what do we call that group of enslaved people with the older ones and the children?
Sir, the picnic gang.
The picnic game. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's what we mean. That's what we talk about when we're talking about the planting. So listen up. If you should get a question like this in the exam, and they ask you about the planting of the sugar cane, I'm looking for a past paper question. I'm looking, I think I had one here. Yes. So there's a past paper question that asks the students to, give me a second, please. So this is the past paper question. I'm going to write the past paper question here. So the question that they asked was, describe the work the slave did in the process of sugar production from all right. Norman, you want to read this question for me, please? This past paper question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead for me.
The second one.
Yes.
Describe the work the slaves did in the process of sugar production from the time the canes were planted to the time the sugar left the estate.
Very good. So your first paragraph, what you're going to talk about? What would you talk about in your first paragraph?
What the slaves did in the process of sugar production?
Yeah, no, but we understand we're talking about the process, yes. But in your very first paragraph, you need to discuss one thing.
Sir, would you name some of the processes?
Yes, you could list the processes, but what would you develop in the first paragraph? In the first paragraph, you talk about the planting. Your second paragraph, you talk about the harvesting, right? Then you talk about what went through at the mill and the boiling house, the curing house, and then the shipping. So these are the different stages or process that the enslaved people would have gone through. Thus, what I'm trying to say here is that when you get a question like this to describe the process, I am expecting that you, in the planting part of the paragraph, you need to discuss from the clear the land to the picnic gang, adding soil to the root to ensure that it remains firm. Are you following what I'm saying, ladies?
Yes, sir.
Ladies, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm expecting that when you're discussing planting, you're going to discuss from the clear the land to the picnic gang, and all of this supposed to be one paragraph. Because I don't want to see another exam paper like that. So under planting, you discuss from clear the land to the picnic gang. So that is the first thing that you're going to discuss. Then the next part of the process is the harvesting. What do we mean by the harvesting?
When you pick up all of the crops.
Yes, when you pick up the crops, yes. So the next stage is the harvesting of the cane, or what we call reaping time or crop time. So the harvest, so the next stage that you're going to discuss is the harvesting of the cane. So these are what going to happen in when we're talking about the harvesting. Now, the first thing you need to know that the harvesting was the busiest time of the year. Busiest time of the year on the plantation. And the enslaved people worked on a shift basis to ensure that production was maximized. And also, not only it was the busiest time and that the enslaved persons work on a shift basis, but those who were the domestic slave, those who used to stay in the house to take care of the house, they have to give some hand, help out when the cane is being reaped. And so they are going to be asked to, or they were asked to help with the weeding of the cane, meaning if there's any little weed around the cane before you go and cut the cane, you have to weed the grass. So the domestics help to weed the grass. All right. And then after that, they field, those who were considered the field slave, those who continuously work in the field, which is this era, because if you look here, you see rattooning cane. So the rattooning cane, these are the old cane that were used. And then here you have the cane field, which is the new cane that was there. So they never used to plant both canes in the same spot. The ratoon were planted on a different part, while the new cane, they planted it on a different part of the plantation. But everybody had to be included in the production of not the production, the harvesting. Now, what they're going to do is that they're going to cut the cane at a specific length. You know, that cane has some little sections on it, right? Some little circles around it. You know that, right?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Who don't know, who is not familiar with what I'm talking about? I'm coming. All right, now ladies, so when you're cutting the cane, there's a specific length that you have to cut the cane, right? So if you look at the sugar cane, you realize that they're cut at a specific length. Now this here that you see, the length that was cut here is called a fragate. So usually they will cut it right at the little circles, because if you realize that they have quite a lot of circles on it around here. And so the length, all of this here is called a fragate. All right. What do we mean by a fragate? James, what do I mean by a fragate? Emmons?
Sir, if it has like a sweet smell.
No. What do I mean by a fragate? Ladies, are you following when I'm teaching?
Sir, is a fragate like a section that they cut off?
All right. So the fragate is the length in which the cane was cut, the specific length in which the cane was cut. Then after they cut the cane, they are going to place the cane in bundles, and then they are going to put them on a cart, and then they are going to take it to the factory. And that includes the reaping time. So Sawyers, what is the first thing that we're going to do during the reaping time or the harvesting time?
Weed the canes.
So we are going to weed the cane. Who are we going to ask for help to weed the cane?
The enslaved workers.
The enslaved workers, yes, but it's the enslaved workers that is doing all the work all the time, but there's a specific group. Lorraine.
So the picnic gang.
So the picnic gang would help, yes, but you're going to ask for additional help. Why are you going to ask for additional help? Denton. Why are you asking for additional help?
Sir, because they're putting them on a shift to get maximum.
They're going to put them on a shift, but why are you going to put people on a shift?
To get maximum production.
Maximum production. Why are we going to need maximum production? What is about the harvesting period?
Sir, it's when you get the crops and stuff, so you're going to need as much help as possible.
Yes, so we're going to need much help as possible, but it is what time of the year? It starts with B.
Sir, the busiest.
It is the busiest time of the year. So when you start to talk about, can remember the question asks to describe the work of the enslaved in the process of sugar production from the time the canes were planted to the time the sugar left the plantation. So one, we looked at the planting. Now you're going to tell us about the harvesting. When you're talking about the harvesting, you need to tell the examiner that one, the harvesting time is the busiest time of the year. And you are correct. You're going to, first thing you need to do is to weed the cane, and you're going to weed the cane using the picnic gang, but also you're going to need additional help from which group of enslaved?
The domestic workers.
The domestic workers. We're going to need extra help from the domestic workers. Now, after we weed the cane, what is the next step? Baker, what is the next step? You weed, then after you weed, what is the next step in the harvesting process? Davis? Davis? Williams?
Yes, sir.
What is the next step? After you weed the cane, and you get the help from the domestic, what are you going to do after that? This
Sir,
is much harder than what I think.
Sir, is it that you're gonna burn it?
So ladies, what is the next step after you weed the cane in the harvesting? You're harvesting the cane. What do we mean by harvesting?
Reaping.
So you're reaping it?
So we're going to reap the cane. So what you're going to do in reaping the cane?
Sir, do you gather it?
But before you gather the cane, what you're going to do, you just go and gather the
You're going
cane
to
just
pull it
like
out?
that?
You're going to pull
Sorry,
it out
cut
of the...
it. Sorry, cut it into fragments.
You're going to cut the cane into fragments, a specific length. And then after you put the cane in, cut the cane in a specific length, then you are going to gather it. You put them together, and then what you're going to do after you put them together? After you put the cane together, what you're going to do?
You tie them in bundles.
You tie them in bundles, yes. But after you tie them in bundles, what is the next step? You're just going to leave them in the cane field just like that?
You're gonna transport it to the factory.
You're going to bring them to the factory. You're going to bring them on the factory on what?
Waiting carts.
Waiting on carts, which is called wains. So in this section of your paragraph, you need to talk, or this new paragraph about harvesting, you need to talk about tell the examiner, what do we mean by harvesting? And not only what we mean by harvesting, but tell them that you cut the cane into a specific length, and then you tie them into bundles. And then after you tie them into bundles, the next thing is that you place them on the cart and you take them to the factory. What are the different areas in the factory? Which buildings were located in the factory?
The boiling house.
So you have the boiling house that was in the factory. What else was in the factory?
For the mill.
Trash. Yes.
The trash house was in the factory. What else was in the factory?
Sir, the mill.
The mills were in the factory. What else was in the factory?
Curing house.
The curing house was in the factory. Very good. So after that, we're going to take it from the fields. We're going to take it from the fields, the cane fields, and we're going to take it to the factory, which is right here. So you have the mill, the boiling house, the curing house, the still house. These are all the buildings in the factory. Now, the first place in the factory that you're going to take the cane is to the mill. What are you going to use the mill to do? What is the purpose of the mill?
To grind it.
To grind the cane. Why you need to grind the cane?
Extract sugar from it.
To extract sugar? No, you can't extract sugar from the cane. What are you going to extract from it?
Juice.
You're going to extract juice from the cane. Right? So the mill was used to extract juice from the cane. And in fact, you could not leave the cane for over 48 hours. Well, if you leave it over 48 hours, then the sucrose level is going to decrease and the fructose level is going to increase, meaning that the cane will turn to rum if you leave it for too long. And there are 3 types of mills in the factory. Well, not some factories only had one type, but there were 3 types of mills that they used. They had the animal mill, the windmill, and the water mill. And the mill had a gutter, or a gutter was connected to the mill that the cane juice flow from the mill into the boiling house. So if you look at this, the mill is here and the boiling house is here. There's a little gutter that is right here that flow the juice. Once you grind the cane or crush the cane, the juice is going to flow from here to the boiling house. There are 3 types of mill. You had the animal mill, so they usually use the horse to go around to crush the cane. Then you had the windmill, and then you also had the water mill. So the mill was powered by animals, some were powered by water, some were powered by the wind. Now, the process now that I'm going to add, so we look now, we would have looked at the planting of the cane. We looked at the harvesting of the cane. We are now at the factory. Now, explain to me what is the first thing. Explain the first point about the mill. Norman, the first point about the mill.
Sir, the mill was used to extract juice from sugar canes.
Very good. So that is the first thing you're going to tell them. Now you're going to leave that alone for the examiner. You're going to give the examiner more information. McLeish, what is the additional information you're going to give the examiner about the mill? Rihanna? Taylor? James?
Sir, would you
Bianca
tell them?
James?
Yes, sir.
What are you going to tell the examiner?
Tell them that if you leave it over 48 hours, it will turn into rum.
Very good, excellent. Williams, what else are you going to tell the examiner about the milk process? But this is really serious because, let me pause this recording there. Let me pause it. It comes to the mill. So you tell them that it is some of the mills were powered by animal, water, and wind. Now we are through with the the mills. All right. So there's a gutter that leads from the mill to the boiling house. What was the purpose of the boiling house? What was the purpose of the boiling house?
Was it to boil the juice that was extracted from the cane?
Yes, to boil the juice that was extracted from the cane. That was the purpose of the boiling house. Therefore, the next step is to take it to the boiling house. And if you look in the boiling house here, this is a picture from a boiling house back in the day, well, a drawing. And so this is where the sugar, the juice would come from. So there's a little gutter right here that put the sugar, the juice from the mill into here. And then they are going to go into different little, well, not little, they were very big. And they are called receptacle, that is called a siphon. And so what you're going to do is that you're going to boil the cane, the juice. And while you're boiling, you're going to add a little lime juice to it. So you're going to boil it and you're going to add lime juice to it. Not a lot, because if you put a lot of lime juice in it, you're going to have problem. Now, in the boiling house, the persons who work in the boiling house, they are called, if you notice, there are 3 persons here. The enslaved people who work in the boiling house is called, they are called boilers or boiler man. And so what they're going to do is that they're going to boil the cane, they're going to stir and mix. The last person, which is here, 1, 2, 3, this person was called a teach. So the last boiler man was called a teach. And so what the teach did was that the teach is going to test the thickness of the cane by using their fingers. So they use the fingers, the forefinger and the thumb, to test the thickness of the cane syrup. Now, while you're boiling the cane juice, there are some things that are going to come on the top of the cane juice. And those are called impurities. And so what you're going to do is that all the different little impurities at the top, you're going to take them off while the cane is boiling, right? And you're going to put them in a little bottle or put them in bottles, and you're going to bring it to the still house or the distillery. And so this was used to make rum. So the impurities at the top, while the cane juice was boiling, you remove it and you put that into bottles, and that was used to make rum. You take that to this part of the estate, the still house or the distillery. That's where the rum is made. So sugar is not only sugar cane you're going to get from it, but you're going to get rum from it. That's where rum comes from. After that, or not even after that, during the process of the boiling, you're going to ensure that you go to the trash house to get some trash from the cane trash. So when they extract the cane into the mill, there are some trash that's going to leave back. Those trash you're going to continue to put on the fire, which is under these receptacles. So the fire continuously burns. All right? And so the final product, once it is cooled, the final product is called Muscovado sugar. So it's not sugar like what we have today. The sugar is called muscovado sugar. So once it is cool, you pour it into hogshead. Right? So these are the hogshead, and you pour them into the hogshead. And the sugar is the muscovado sugar, which is, this is how the sugar would have looked. It is wet sugar. Now, after you leave the boiling house, we already talked about that you take the impurities to the, what you call it now? The impurities to the still house. The next step is that you're going to pour the sugar in the, once it is cool, you pour the sugar into the hogshead and you're going to take it to the curing house. So you move from the boiling to the curing house, and at the curing house, you're going to place the hogshead, which is these, or a better looking one is this. You're going to place the hogshead with the wet sugar over a cistern. And so what is going to happen, if you have a wet sugar, then things are, liquid is going to leak or drip from the wet sugar. Whatever is drip from the wet sugar is called molasses. It's called molasses. Then after that, in fact, the hogshead only remained there for 3 weeks. Only 3 weeks alone it stayed there. If it should remain longer, then most of the sugar is going to drip out and turn into molasses, and you don't want that. Now your next step is the shipping. So you're going to seal the hogshead, you're going to bring it to the coast, and you're going to put them onto the enslaved people are going to put them onto the ships, and then they are going to send them to Europe. All right? And in Europe, on its way to Europe, it had several different problems that the sugar going to have when it's going to Europe. One, there are persons who are called brokers or middlemen. Those are the persons who help to sell the sugar in Europe. So what they do is steal some of the sugar. Then sometime when the ship is going to Europe, you have natural disasters such as hurricane and wave, and it delayed the ships at sea. So most of the sugar is going to leak out and turn into molasses. So that means you have less money that you're going to get for your sugar, right? And then there are sometimes on the ship, you have outbreak of diseases such as cholera, dysentery. These are diseases that are going to happen on the ship. Then also, because every colony is producing sugar, you're going to have a glut on the market, meaning that the prices of sugar is going to be significantly low. And then when the sugar reaches to Europe, you have to pay custom fees, merchant fees, replacement fees, and insurance. And so I'm going to encourage you to take up the book, and I'm going to place the book back into the classroom, and I'm going to ask you kindly to read the book. In fact, this is just 1 page. All of this that I'm discussing, I've already sent it to you. It's 1 page. And so I'm going to encourage you, please read. You cannot do history and you are not reading. It makes no sense. It is a reading subject. You are not reading and you are not participating in the class. So I'm going to encourage you that when we meet again tomorrow, that I'm expecting that when I ask you the different stages, because that's the first thing we're going to do tomorrow, where I'm going to ask you to discuss from the planting to the shipping, and I call on individual persons, then you are able to participate and tell me the different processes that involve in the planting to the marketing of the sugar. And then there's also another problem on the sugar, when they are producing sugar, is that the enslaved people sometimes, they put stones in the mills and they damage the machine. Sometimes they damage even the animals. They increase a lot of lime, put a lot of lime juice in it, and sometimes they overboil the sugar. So when you overboil the sugar, you're going to get more molasses. So in fact, the planter will not make a lot of money from the sugar cane. Resistance. So they are resisting in the cane field. They are resisting in the factory. They are resisting in the boiling house. All right, ladies, enjoy the rest of the morning.
Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.